Okay, so on 291 in this chapter, Harry sends a letter back to Sirius. Remember, Sirius says, keep in touch with me, let me know if anything odd is happening, your car hurts again, tell Dumbledore and all that kind of stuff. So he sends Sirius a letter. You told me to keep you posted on what's happening at Hogwarts, so here goes. I don't know if you've heard, but the Triwizard Tournament's happening this year on Saturday night. I got picked as a 4th champion. Notice, try, 4th, immediately there's a problem. I don't know who put my name in the Goblet of Fire because I didn't. Okay? So I'm going to skip a bunch. We see Malfoy comes up with his nice little pins for support Cedric Diggory. You press the pin and it changes to read Potter stinks. Did we go over this? Am I confusing with my other class? No. So, Harry and Malfoy have I don't know what you call this, a spat, a mini duel. The upshot of which is Hermione gets nailed in the teeth with the Dens Augeo spell, charm, hex, whatever you want to call it, page 299. And what are we told there about Hermione's teeth prior to being hit with the charm or spell? They're already big, okay? So she's buck-toothed. Maybe not quite Bugs Bunny, but she is after this. Okay? Her teeth come down, we're told, past her bottom lip toward her chin. So, these are big suckers. So, Harry says to Snape, look what Malfoy did to Hermione. Snape, top of 300. I see no difference. So what's that tell us about Snape? He's cold, he's a jerk, he's a bully. You could pull in all different kinds of language to describe him. He's not very nice, let's just put it that way. Okay? Why? Is it just his nature? Say that again. Well, yeah, we're going to find out later he was bullied. We're going to find out in this book later. He was bullied a little bit. What else? Doesn't like Muggleborns. Okay, he doesn't like Harry. Hermione is what kind of student? Louder, I'm deaf.
She's a know-it-all.
She's a know-it-all. I don't care whether you're talking kindergarten to, I teach doctoral students. Nobody likes a know-it-all, right? Every question, every class, whose hands up first? Hermione's, right? Very first Defense Against the Dark Arts lesson. Very first potions lesson. Snape rattles off 3 rapid-fire questions to Harry. Hermione's. She knows them all. Why? She's read all the books. And she apparently has a photographic memory. Not literally, we're never told that, but she remembers everything, okay? So Snape just doesn't like her for that reason as well. Plus, she has this supreme displeasure, according to Snape, of being Harry's friend. So, if you're Harry's friend and Snape can take a jab at you, will he ever pass up on that opportunity? Who gets picked on the most in potions if it's not Harry? Neville. Why? He's Harry's friend. Snape doesn't have anything against Neville's family or against Neville's parents. It's because he's Harry's friend. Okay? Same thing with Malfoy and Neville, by the way. So, Hermione runs off, in tears, goes on to Madame Pomfrey. Meanwhile, Harry gets called to the weighing of the wands. And we get the real introduction to Rita Skeeter. We've only heard about her before. Now we see her, okay, with her quill, bottom of 304. She tests her quill, her quick quote quill, Testing, my name is Rita Skeeter, Daily Prophet reporter, and what does it write down? Attractive blonde, Rita Skeeter, 43, whose savage quill has punctured many inflated reputations. Okay? Why?
Just that, what that does.
Okay. Why does Rowling, include Rita Skeeter? What is Rita Skeeter's purpose in, let's say, the overall story arc from where she's introduced really here through book 7? Okay. What else? Okay, who does she write for? Daily Prophet. Later on, book 6, she's going to write for somebody else. Okay? So she writes for the Daily Prophet. What is the Daily Prophet in our world?
New York Times.
Yeah, in our world, meaning the United States, it would be equivalent to something like the New York Times. If you're in England, it would be like the Times of London. Okay? In other words, it's the respectable voice of, well, this is where it differs a little bit, of the government. Is the New York Times the respectable voice of our current government, the administration? No. What would that be? Breitbart? Something like that. Okay? But if it were the Obama administration, yeah, it would be the Times. Okay? So it's kind of the voice of the government. It spouts the government line to a degree. Okay? What have we already learned in book 2 about what one reads? Louder, Dale.
It's not always true.
It's not always true.
You can't always believe it.
You can't always believe it. Where do we see that in book 2? Tom Riddle's diary and Gilderoy Lockhart's books. Gilderoy Lockhart's books have how much truth? No, they don't have zero truth.
It has truth, but it's twisted truth. It's not his truth.
It's not, who said that? Zan said that. It's not his truth. He stole all that information from somebody else, right? For each of the books. He tells Ron and Harry at that one point, you know, who really cares? Because who's going to take the word of, I can't remember what it is, something like a witch from Ireland with a hair lip about, you know, the Brandon Banshee or something. Instead, they get what? Fabio on the cover. Okay, sorry, Zan, didn't mean to make you spill that. Fabio on the cover, who takes credit for all of this stuff. Did he do any of it? No, not at all. Okay? What about Tom Riddle's diary? Who does it manipulate? Jenny and Harry. Because notice, Harry believes everything the diary tells him about whom? Hagrid. Okay? So do you start to see kind of a theme or a motif that starts to run through? So you have that, okay, in the second book. Third book. Where does most of our knowledge come regarding Sirius Black? At least initially. Comes from the newspaper that Vernon's reading, comes from the television news, and then it comes from the newspaper, the Daily Prophet, that Harry kind of glances at on the night bus. All of that turns out to be what? False. Some of it intentionally false, some of it just wrong. Okay? You can be wrong and be unintentional. All right? Where do we get the truth? Where do we get some of the truth? From Sirius. Okay? What about that scene when Harry, Ron, and Hermione are at the Three Broomsticks And McGonagall and Flitwick and Fudge and Hagrid come in, and they all sit down with their various alcoholic elixirs. Madame Rosmerta goes and sits down beside them. And Harry's invisible, remember. What does he overhear? They're talking about Harry's parents, okay? They're talking about Peter Pettigrew. They're talking about Sirius Black. How much of that is correct? Some of it is. They find out, man, Sirius Black, he and James were really close. Peter Pettigrew was kind of a hanger-on, never quite the same caliber as the others. And yet, the official line coming through Fudge is that Sirius did what? Blasted away these 13 muggles and then disappeared. And then later gets caught, right? It's all wrong. Then we get this book. And we meet Rita Skeeter, author of the articles, author of several articles. Every one of her articles, how much of it is true? 50% maybe? Is it true Hagrid is a half giant? Yes, it is. Is it true his mother was known for her fierceness? Yes, it is. Okay. Is it true that Harry cries himself to sleep at night? No, it's not. Is it true that Harry and Hermione had a thing? No, it's not. Though, book 7, sorry to give this away, Ron kind of thinks maybe there's a little bit of truth to that. Okay, so we get all of this stuff going on. Book 5. How is Harry trying, for those of you who've read them, how is Harry trying to find out information about Voldemort? One, he's turning on the telly. He's looking at BBC, Sky News, because he's thinking, we're going to see it in this chapter, or in this portion today. What does Sirius say life was like last time Voldemort was around? Well, we can go back to the Quidditch World Cup. What did Arthur Weasley say? Lots of people were going missing. Lots of people died. Okay, so because he comes back at the end of this book, sorry to give that away if you've not gotten there yet, you should have. The next book opens, Voldemort's back. So Harry's thinking what? People are going to start disappearing. Obviously, that would get reported in the news, Harry believes. And yet, there's nothing in the news. He's taken out a subscription to the Daily Prophet. How much of it does he read? This gives us a little more info about Harry's research skills and his reading, not ability, his, I can't think of the right phrase. Amateur, yeah. He reads the front page and the last page. Where, in any newspaper, where is the really important stuff? It's not the front page. The front page is the sensational stuff to grab your attention to buy that newspaper out of the newspaper rack. It's like, headlines on the internet. Clickbait is what it's called. Okay? That's what the headline's designed to do. Get you to read it. The meat of it is usually then where? Continued on A10. So you have to flip through, and that's where you get all the really important stuff. Harry skips all of that. Okay? Book 6. We hear more about the news inside. What is Rowling doing? And the news being both visual and literal. Okay? What is Rowling doing? One of the issues she is raising is this process of reading for knowledge or information, which is commonly thought to be truth. I think Rowling is trying to get her readers her 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17-year-old readers to develop this kind of critical awareness that not everything I read is true. Like the internet memes, where Lincoln says, don't trust the internet, kind of a thing. Which, works because I think it is something like 30 or 40% of American high school students don't know what century Lincoln lived in. So they might think that the internet exists. I know, it's really sad. They might think Lincoln actually lived when there was an internet. Okay? She's calling this into question. So that in book 7, we're going to see Rita Skeeter write for what modern American equivalent? The National Enquirer. The Quibbler. What kind of articles does the Quibbler publish? Sirius Black is alive and well, and he's, I don't remember what his name is, Freddie Vape, the musician, off in Wales or something. It's some really crazy thing. Look at the National Enquirer, the Star, any of these other tabloids that are at the checkout counter. Big headlines, Elvis not dead, spotted through the Hubble telescope on Titan or something, or some other nonsense like that. That's the kind of stuff the Quibbler publishes. But then she goes to publish for it. So what would that be the equivalent of? Oh, I don't know. What has happened to Dan Rather? Used to be the CBS evening news anchor before he retired, and then he was just kind of a roving correspondent for them, would do editorials and stuff. Why doesn't Dan Rather show up on CBS anymore? Any of you know?
Yeah, he got some information wrong about George Bush.
That is a very benevolent way of putting it. He got some information wrong about George Bush II prior to the 2004 election. When I say prior to the 2004 election, I mean like in September of 2004. It was the proverbial October surprise. What did he publish? He published in the news, 60 Minutes I think it was, a document that suggested George Bush bought his way out of going to Vietnam. See, Bush was a fighter pilot for the Texas Air National Guard. Everybody besmirches Bush's intellect. You can't be a dummy and be a fighter pilot, period. Too much stuff going on to be a dummy and be able to do that. Anyways, okay, the internet was fairly new in 2004. Blogging was really new. It's only about 4 to 5 years old. And what happened? A bunch of bloggers picked apart the entire story because they proved beyond a shadow of a doubt that the font used in the so-called Air National Guard documentation that suggested Bush got his father to get him out of active duty did not exist at the time the document was reportedly made in like 1973 or 72. That font was a Microsoft Office font that didn't exist until like 2001. Okay? And yet, everybody in the media believed it at the time. And a whole bunch of people believed it at the time. Okay? Dan Rather today has a podcast, has a website, but other than that, not much. Rowling is suggesting, take what journalists say with a grain of salt. Or, what did Mr. Weasley say in the second book? Never trust something that you don't know where it keeps its brain. Okay, so what does that mean in relation to the media and such? What is the number one source And again, it doesn't matter your politics. This applies to any administration. Trump, Obama, Bush, Clinton. What is the number one, but I'm going to apply it to the current one. What is the number one source of stories that come out about the White House? Leaks. What kind of leaks? Are these leaks where people sign their names? Anonymous sources. Can you imagine the impact the Declaration of Independence would have if it ended with the way it ends? To this end, we pledge our lives, our honor, our sacred fortune, or something like that. And then it's blank at the end. Because if you've ever seen a copy of the Declaration of Independence, what comes after everything Jefferson wrote? A whole bunch of signatures, right? One great big one right in the middle. John Hancock, which is why you go to buy a house and you have to sign your life away, and the lawyer will say, put your John Hancock right there. It doesn't mean write John Hancock. It means write it clearly. John Hancock said, George III's blind, so I'm going to write it big so he can read it. See, when they pledge their lives, their fortunes, their sacred honor, that's what it is, not sacred fortune. Life, fortune, sacred honor. What are they doing? They're staking their life on that. What are anonymous sources staking? Nothing. They have no skin in the game. Who are Rita Skeeter's sources? For anything she writes. Was she there at the Quidditch World Cup? Did she actually talk to Arnold Weasley? No. Okay. Did she talk to Hagrid or Madame Maxime? No. Did she talk to Hermione? No. Well, she does have one little, in the next book, interchange with her. Actually, in this book. Okay, she eavesdrops. Yeah, we'll find out later. But even then, is it necessarily accurate? No. Okay, she's hearing a lot of it out of context and such. Okay, so we get her first scoop here. So Dumbledore comes and rescues Harry from her, takes him to the weighing of the wands. And at the end of the chapter, Harry gets a letter back from Sirius. Can't say everything. Who, by the way, shows up at the weighing of the wands to represent Harry's family? Molly Weasley. Might even be Arthur too, but I know Molly's there. Harry, I can't say everything I'd like to in a letter. It's too risky in case the owl is intercepted. What does that immediately tell us? Intercepted by whom? Ministry of Magic? Dumbledore? We need to talk face to face. Can you ensure that you are alone by the fire in Gryffindor Tower at 1 o'clock in the morning, 22nd? Okay? He says, you can look after yourself, but while you're around Dumbledore and Moody, I don't think anyone will be able to hurt you. Okay? So, the Hungarian Horntail. And we get part of Rita Skeeter's scoop. And here's where it gets really ludicrous. Page 315. Harry has at last found love at Hogwarts. His close friend, Colin Creevey. I don't know about you, but I personally am happy when Colin Creevey gets what's coming to him in Book 7. Just wipe out the whole Creevey clan. You know, they're just horrible people. Sorry. Just my own rotten nature. How close is Harry with Colin? He doesn't like him. He's always walking around with his stupid camera. Imagine if Colin had, these things. Okay? And Hermione is called a stunningly pretty muggle-born girl. Is she called that in the first book? She is a muggle-born girl. Notice, that part's correct. Okay? So let's skip a bunch. Page 322. They're at the Three Broomsticks, because remember, Harry can go off to Hogsmeade now. Legally, he doesn't have to go illegally. And Moody bends down. Harry is wearing his cloak. And Moody says, "Nice cloak, Potter." Harry, can you? Yeah, can see through invisibility cloaks. Come in useful at times, I can tell you. And yet we're going to be told something about invisibility cloaks in book 7. Okay. This seems to be a huge problem. Now, again, probably in Pottermore, or in some interview, she's come up with a way to resolve the problem. But I don't think there is a way to resolve the problem. It's kind of like trying to come up with a way to resolve, as she has done, with the problem of the Time Turner. Okay? Book 3. If you can go to the Ministry of Magic, go to the Department of Mysteries, and go to the Time Room, and get a Time Turner from it, as Hermione is allowed to do. She doesn't go there physically. McGonagall gets it for her. And you can get a Time Turner that allows you to go back in time so you can take multiple classes at the same time. What else, theoretically, should you be able to do with that Time Turner? You could go back in time and stop Voldemort from killing your parents. That'd be a good thing, right? You could go back in time and stop Peter Pettigrew from killing 13 Muggles and Sirius from getting framed. That would be a good thing. You could go...
Just think about investigation. I know.
They might be afraid of the butterfly effect.
Does she ever address that?
No.
No. Dumbledore tells Hermione, I think 3 turns will do it, to take them back 3 hours. So why doesn't Hermione think, hey, Harry, I've got this thing and I can go back in time. Why don't we go... She doesn't know this yet, but work with me for a moment. Why don't we go back in time to when Voldemort's a baby? And do like the Indians used to do with American colonists. Smash their heads against the wall. Why don't we kill them? Problem solved. Why don't we abort them? Problem solved. Right? I mean, this is the problem. This is what you see in Sophocles' Oedipus the King. Oedipus' parents receive a prophecy. Your son will kill you, Laius, and he will marry you, Jocasta, and have children by you. And brothers and sisters, which is going to really screw up the whole family tree, because you have cousins who are cousins once removed, and just. So why doesn't Laius say, okay, Jocasta, you're getting an abortion, or as soon as the baby's delivered? No, instead they keep it 3 days, they give it to a shepherd to go put it on a mountain. The shepherd's all, poor little baby. Another shepherd says, I'll take it. He goes off, lives somewhere else. Fate comes full circle, and he completes the prophecy. That's the problem with any and every time travel. You run into the time travel conundrum that you can't get out of. You're in Groundhog Day. I mean, it just loops over and over and over. Once you create a possibility to try to go backwards in time, why not go all the way back in time and kill the damn snake in the garden, if you're going to accept, the Christian myth, so to speak. So that when it rears its head up, Eve goes, ah! Adam comes and, kills it. Problem solved. Okay? It doesn't work, in other words. So, this is another instance of a problem in writing, in that I don't think she remembers this. when she describes invisibility cloaks in book 7. She should, because it's pretty important here. Okay? So he says, yeah, I can see through invisibility cloaks. Okay, let's skip a bunch again. So, how does Harry find out about the dragons? Hagrid. Hagrid cheats. Okay? I've got so many sticky notes here, I can't find which one is which. Pages 327 and following. Okay? Harry sees Charlie. Charlie doesn't see Harry. Harry's got on the invisibility cloak. Right? And Hagrid says, so what do the champions have to do, Charlie? Helping Harry. Just get past them, I think. We'll be on hand if it gets nasty. Extinguishing spells at the ready. Okay? So, Harry realizes Karkaroff's there, so now he knows. Madame Maxime's there, so now he knows. Crumb's going to know about dragons. Fleur's going to know about dragons. He knows about dragons. Who doesn't know about dragons? Cedric. Okay. So he goes back to the Gryffindor common room to speak to Sirius, and Sirius shows up. And they talk about the Death Eaters. They talk about Moody and such. Ron comes down. And just as Ron throws when Ron leaves, throws one of the badges at Ron, hits him on the forehead, and says something for you to wear on Tuesday. You might even have a scar if you're lucky. It's what you want, isn't it? What does Harry mean? That a scar is what Ron wants.
That scar comes with that famous.
What did Ron see when he looked in the mirror of Erised? Himself alone getting all kinds of adulation. You want a scar? You want to be famous, Ron? So we get the first task. Okay? First task is to get the golden egg from each of the dragons, or from your particular dragon. Okay? Harry doesn't realize it, but the golden egg has something in it. He's going to find that out after Christmas. And I never realized this before until, I don't remember what year it was, 2005, 2007, something like that, when one of my trips to London, they had opened a new wing in the Cabinet War Rooms, which is a major attraction that you can go down under London to see where Winston Churchill ran World War II from the British side, at least. And they when they opened up the Churchill Museum in there, they had something that was known about publicly, but not readily available to see. And that was two things. The Enigma machine, which was a machine used to decode Nazi code. Watch Imitation Game. Yeah. Fantastic. With this. Okay, so that you would put in the code that came, and eventually it would spit out what it means in modern English. Okay? Once they got that figured out, once they got the machine made, Churchill required for the ticker tape, and that's essentially what it was, for the ticker tape deciphered code to be delivered to him, with nobody else having seen it. So it would get spat out by the machine, torn off, taken to Churchill. You know how it was taken to Churchill? In essentially a golden egg. Looks literally like a big bird, flightless ostrich. Looks like an ostrich egg, but gold. Has hinges, and they would put that in there and deliver that to Churchill. Okay? Only his eyes, because they didn't know who might be spies and such. Just kind of interesting. Because Harry's going to have to figure out what's in the golden egg later, right? What happens at the end of this first task? Okay, first of all, we hear Ludo Bagman say, "Great Scott, he can fly. Are you watching this, Mr. Crumb?" Okay, so Harry can fly as well as Victor Crumb. What else? I mean, we see their points awarded. What's the really important thing that happens at the end? Ron comes and essentially apologizes. And Harry says, "Don't worry about it." Okay? Then we get the House Elf Liberation Front, which I'm going to skip most all of, I think. We find out Dobby's now working there. We get the unexpected task. Why is Ron so been out about the unexpected task?
Hermione went with Victor Crumb.
Okay, yeah, Hermione, what about even before then? His dress robes are dress robes, okay? They're like a girl's robes, and how old are they? We're told they're like from the beginning of the last century. Okay, big old ruff, frilly thing around the neck. Okay. Harry wants to invite somebody, but he waits, right? Does Ron have anybody in mind? Yeah, he does, but he also waits. Okay. So we get the Yule Ball. Who do Harry and Ron go with? Padma and Parvati Patil. Okay. Which is telling us what? Hogwarts is very inclusive. It has Indian/Pakistani students. Patil, not Indian, it's Pakistani, sorry. You've got Cho. Hermione's there. What does Hermione look like when she comes out with Victor Crumb? Now she looks like Emma Watson. It's like she went to Madame Pomfrey, and Madame Pomfrey not only did the teeth, but she worked a little plastic magic. So that, wow, who doesn't even recognize her? Harry does. Ron doesn't. It's when Ron realizes who she is and who she's with that he gets all bent out of shape. Because what does Ron think about Victor Crumb now? Or as Ron likes to call him, Vicky. Okay? Fraternizing with the enemy is what Ron calls it. Is Victor Crumb, are the Beauxbaton students and the Durmstrang students the enemies? What is the purpose of the Triwizard Tournament? To foster international magical cooperation through the auspices of sport. Sounds like the Olympics. Okay? Bunch of nonsense. Personally. So, Harry gets another letter from Sirius congratulating him on the Horntail. How did, by the way, let me go back for a moment. Where is that? Just prior to the first task, Harry gets caught by Moody telling Cedric, there it is, page 341. Harry tells Cedric about the dragons. Completely skipped this for some reason. And Cedric says, middle of 341, "Why are you telling me?" Okay, notice what that assumes on Cedric's part about Harry. Harry looked at him in disbelief. He was sure Cedric wouldn't have asked that if he had seen the dragons himself. In other words, What does Harry think Cedric means? Cedric's like, you're giving away your what? Your advantage in this situation. And Harry says, it's just fair, isn't it? Now that sounds like a Hufflepuff. That does not sound like a Gryffindor. Okay? We all know now we're on an even footing, aren't we? Because he already told Cedric that Fleur knows and Crumb knows. So Cedric would have been the only one who wouldn't know. Okay? So Moody sees this. And he tells Harry, come with me, Potter. He goes, come on. That was a very decent thing you just did, Potter. Middle of 342. Harry, notice, doesn't know what to say. He sees all these secrecy censures and all this kind of stuff. So, page 343 at the bottom, found out about the dragons, did you? It's all right. Cheating's a traditional part of the Triwizard. When did anybody say that it's part of it? Where did the rules say, by the way? It's not in the rules, but it's something that's done. Kind of like politics, cheating in politics. Harry, I didn't cheat. It was sort of an accident that I found out. Was it an accident that Hagrid invited him down to his hut at 11:30 at night? No, that wasn't an accident. Harry didn't know why Hagrid wanted him down. Right? I wasn't accusing you, laddie. I've been telling Dumbledore from the start. He can be as high-minded as he likes, but you can bet old Karkaroff and Maxime won't be. They'll have told their champions everything they can. So, how are you going to get past your dragon, Harry? No idea. Well, I'm not going to tell you. Play to your strengths, Harry. I don't have any. What does Gandalf say to Frodo? You'll have to use what strength, wits, and heart you have about you. But I have so little of any of these things. Will you not take the ring, Harry, I haven't got any. I don't have any strength. Excuse me. You've got strengths if I say you've got them. Think now. What are you best at? Harry's going, let's see. Herbology? Defense against the dark arts? Potions? Hell no. Arithmancy? He doesn't have that yet. Transfiguration? He's not very good at that. Quidditch. In other words, play. I'm really good at play. That's right. You're a damn good flyer from what I've heard. Yeah, but I'm not allowed a broom. Here's the second piece of advice. Get what you need. What has Flitwick just happened to be teaching them seemingly all semester long so far? Okay? So he goes to Hermione and she helps him learn the charm. All right, so back to where we were, House Elf, past House Elf Liberation Front, Yule Ball. So Cedric, page 431, repays his debt. That is, Harry told him about the dragons. Cedric says, you figured out about the golden egg? No. Does yours wail when you open it? Yeah. Take a bath. Okay, is that really quite the same as dragons? We got to get past dragons. Take a bath, Harry. What are you, some kind of perv? No, but somebody in the bathroom. Yeah, morning more than a little. Don't really want to go there. So he says, take a bath. We get Rita Skeeter Scoop. How much did Harry and Ron actually participate in the Yule Ball?
None.
How much did they actually dance with Padme and Parvati? How stupid are Harry and Ron?
Very.
Because Padme and Parvati, if I remember right, are supposed to be drop dead gorgeous. Okay? Stupid, man. So they do what? They go and sit by themselves and drink their crappy little butter beer and then go outside And over here,
Hagrid.
Hagrid and Maxime, Karkaroff and Snape, Fleur and Roger Davies snogging over in the bushes. Okay. So we get the big long scoop about Hagrid. So we're going to skip a bunch to when Harry, Ron, and Hermione go down to, actually we're not going to skip that part, pages 450 and 51. They've gone off to the Three Broomsticks, and Rita Skeeter comes in. And Harry starts to talk with her. Says, I wouldn't come near you, bottom of 450, I wouldn't come near you with a 10-foot broomstick. Why did you do that to Hagrid for? Our readers have a right to the truth, Harry. I am merely doing my, who cares if he's half giant? There's nothing wrong with him. And notice, the whole pub's gone quiet. Everybody's listening to this now. And Hagrid comes up, Rita says, how about giving me an interview about the Hagrid you know? Well, what's going on in Harry's mind?
She gets twisted too.
Yeah, because what happened to the last interview Harry gave her? He didn't, right? He didn't give an interview. He was in the broom closet with her for maybe 5 minutes, never really got a word out, and she wove this whole fabrication. The man behind the muscles, your unlikely friendship and the reasons behind it. Would you call him a father substitute? Hermione, you horrible woman. You don't care, do you? Anything for a story. Anyone will do. Even Ludo Bagman. Sit down, you silly little girl, and don't talk about things you don't understand. I know things about Ludo Bagman that would make your hair curl, which it already is. What things does she know about Ludo Bagman?
He was tried for being a deputy.
Tried for being a Death Eater. Is that it? Does she know that Ludo Bagman bets? Is in debt to goblins? No, it's the Death Eater thing. He was tried and what? Acquitted. Why? Is it because he's popular? Is it because he flew for England? Was a beater? And got beat a lot?
Kind of played dumb.
Is it that he played dumb? Or he is kind of dumb?
Because he got beat.
Ludo Bagman is the quintessential what? Dumb jock. That's what he is. Okay? Who kind of rose to some position of authority on the basis of what? Who he knew. Networking. We're going to see in that trial, why is he tried? Because his dad put him in touch with somebody. How was he supposed to know, or his dad, supposed to know that somebody he was put in touch with was tainted, let's say. Okay? Ron, she'll be after you next, Hermione. And sure enough. So, they go off to Hagrid's hut. And Dumbledore's there. They bang on the door till Dumbledore lets them in. Bottom of 453. 452 and 453. Harry says something about that Skeeter cow. 453 right in the middle. Sorry, Professor. Dumbledore says, I've gone temporarily deaf and haven't any idea what you said. Okay, now compare that with first book. Snape said, Professor Snape, Harry, every time Harry refers to Snape as Snape in Dumbledore's presence, Dumbledore corrects him. Professor Snape, Harry. Why? So why not here? She's a famous correspondent. She's also slime. That's why. Okay? So, Dumbledore says, I'm not accepting your resignation. Harry says, look who I have for relatives. When Hagrid says, my mother was a giant, my father, look what I've got. Dumbledore, excellent point. My own brother, Aberforth, prosecuted for practicing inappropriate charms on a goat, which really makes you wonder what exactly Rowling means by that, because that has certain connotations, So, Dumbledore leaves, and Hagrid shows them a picture of himself and his father. Hagrid, a good 7 or 8 feet tall, but his face was beardless, young, round, and smooth. In other words, probably early teens. He still has a lot of growing to do. That was taken, he's 11. That was taken just after I got into Hogwarts. So he's got an awful lot of growing to do. Dad was dead chuffed, thought I might not be a wizard, see? Because my mom, etc. Dumbledore was the one who stuck up for me after Dad went, got me the gamekeeper job. Trusts people, he does. Gives them second chances. That's what sets him apart from other heads, see? He'll accept anyone at Hogwarts, as long as they've got the talent. That is, as long as they're magical. We're going to see, Book 7, Dumbledore wouldn't accept somebody into Hogwarts because the person wanted to go at Hogwarts, but wasn't magical. The person kept writing to Dumbledore, kept saying no. Knows people can turn out okay even if their families weren't, well, all that respectable. Go back to Book 2. You shouldn't have done it, Arthur. Everybody knows Malfoy's not worth it. Rotten to the core. The whole family. What does he mean there in Chamber of Secrets? Malfoys aren't worth wasting a breath over. And yet here, he says, Dumbledore knows people can turn out okay even if their families weren't all that respectable. What did we learn about Sirius Black and his family, a little bit, in the 3rd book? Not that great. Nice way of putting. What did almost everybody else in his family support? Slytherin, were they Voldemort supporters? Well, one of them was, we'll find out. But his parents weren't necessarily. Maniacs. Yeah, they were pure blood maniacs. KKK, essentially. Okay? Pure blood maniacs. Sirius? Not at all. Okay? Knows people can turn out okay even if their families weren't, well, all that respectable. But some don't understand that. There's some who'd always hold it against you. Some who'd pretend they just had big bones rather than stand up and say. But notice, Hagrid's not looking in a mirror. Because he hasn't yet seen that what he's saying also applies to what he has said about, for example, the Malfoys. You know what, Harry? Page 456. When I first met you, you reminded me of me a bit. Mom and Dad gone. You was feeling like you wouldn't fit in at Hogwarts. Remember? Not sure you were really up to it. Look at you now, Harry. School champion. And Harry's thinking, but I shouldn't be. Something's wrong here. You know what I'd love, Harry? I'd love you to win. I really would. You'd show them all. You don't have to be pureblood to do it. Wait a second. Is Harry not pureblood? Is his mother a witch? Yes. Was his father a wizard? Yes. Isn't that the definition of pureblood? His mom was Muggle-born. So, What mix is he? 75%? I mean, this is where when you get into that kind of computing mentality, it doesn't make any sense. Because what does that mean? Well, Ron's going to say, next book, if purebloods hadn't married with non-purebloods, we would have died out by now. There are some all pureblood families still around. The Weasleys, the Malfoys, the Longbottoms. There are a couple others that are mentioned. I think the Abbotts and maybe the Bones. I think, I'm not positive. I have to go back and take a look at the picture I took of the Black Tapestry. If you ever get an opportunity to go to London, go to the real Warner Brothers studio tour. Okay, I take my students when I do my Harry Potter course in London because the props. I can't stand the films. I absolutely detest the film, but the props are mind-bogglingly amazing, and the artwork that you can see the original conceptual artwork, and then the mock-up, the model for the castle that they use for all the exterior shots. When you're flying around the castle or stuff. The castle itself, the model is 1.5 times the size of this room. You go in, you walk around it, and it's various lit. Students usually go in there and they burst into tears because this thing is so amazing, right? Anyway, he asks Harry, "How you doing with the egg?" "Great," Harry lies, because he hasn't looked at it. So he takes the egg, he goes to the prefect's bathroom on the 4th floor, and there's Moaning Myrtle going, "Take it off, Harry." So he goes under the water, opens the egg, and what does he hear? 463. "Come seek us where our voices sound. We cannot sing above the ground. And while you're searching, ponder this. We've taken what you'll sorely miss. An hour long you'll have to look and to recover what we took. But past an hour, the prospect's black. Too late, it's gone. It won't come back." Harry hears that, and what does he think? Again, it gets back to this. Whoever, whatever is taken will be gone forever. And yet, what were they told at the beginning of the year when the Triwizard Tournament was first announced? Nobody will die. Okay? They have taken precautions, which is why the whole first task scene in the film is so ridiculous. What does Charlie say when Hagrid asks what kind of dragons and about danger? He says, "Yeah, we'll use an extinguishing charm." Knocks him out cold. And what happens in the film? Harry's being chased by that seemingly rabid dragon all over the countryside. Knocking tiles off of Hogwarts and damaging minarets and.
Did they damage the bridge too?
Oh, yeah, the bridge. Who pays for that? So he then starts his way back down. He's got the cloak on. Peeves and Filch are there. Snape is there, almost catches Harry. Moody rescues him. And 471, 72. Snape asks about the parchment. Now, let me back up just a little bit. "471. Moody asks Snape, "Hiding anything in your office?" "You know I'm hiding nothing, Moody, as you've searched my office pretty thoroughly yourself." "Auror's privilege, Snape. Dumbledore told me to keep." "Dumbledore happens to trust me," says Snape. "I refuse to believe he gave you orders to search my office." "Of course Dumbledore trusts you. He's a trusting man, isn't he?" What did Hagrid just finish saying, essentially, to Harry, Ron, and Hermione? He gives people second chances. But me, I say there are spots that don't come off, Snape. In other words, a leopard doesn't change its skin. People can't change. This Moody is saying. Right? So, Moody takes the parchment. Harry pulls off the thing. And he and Moody talk. And Harry tells Moody what the parchment does. And we get the second task. I'm going to skip most of the second task. Let's see here. Dobby helps Harry. He does the gillyweed. He goes, he rescues everybody else. Fleur helps Crumb get Hermione. And we're told pages 305, 505, 506. Actually, 507. So 506, 507, we get the scoring of how each one did in the second task. Okay, Fleur Delacour demonstrated excellent use of the bubblehead charm, but she was attacked and failed to rescue her hostage. So she gets 25 points. In other words, she gets 50%. There's a 50-point awarded possible. She essentially put her name on the test. Okay? Applause from the stands. Cedric Diggory also uses the bubblehead charm. He was the first to return with his hostage, but he returned outside the limit of an hour. He gets 47 points. Notice nothing said about Harry helping him. Okay? Victor Crumb gets 40 points. Harry Potter used gillyweed to great effect. He returned last, well outside the time limit of an hour. But the Mer Chiefess informs us that Mr. Potter was first to reach the hostages, which means he would have been first out, and that the delay in his return was due to his determination to return all hostages to safety, not merely his own. Most of the judges feel that this shows moral fiber and merits full marks. However, Mr. Potter's score is 45. So, Harry, Cedric are now what? Tied. Okay? So, they go off to Hogsmeade after Rita Skeeter's next scoop is published. What does Hermione get in the mail for several days after Rita Skeeter's scoop? Including from whom? Apparently, Molly Weasley. It's kind of like, don't you be dissing on Harry now, you know. Kids had enough. Okay? So, Snape threatens Harry with Veritaserum because of the gillyweed theft. And then they go off to Hogsmeade and meet with Sirius. So, we hear stuff about the illness of Bartemius Crouch. Bertha Jorkin's missing. Harry's looking at the Daily Prophet papers that Sirius has had around. They tell Sirius about Winky being in the top box, later on being accused of the Mors Mordra, the Dark Mark. Page 525. Hermione says, Barty Crouch just sacked her, talking about Winky, because she hadn't stayed in her tent and let herself get trampled. Ron, Hermione, will you give it a rest with the elf? Sirius, she's got the measure of Crouch better than you have, Ron. If you want to know what a man's like, take a good look at how he treats his inferiors, not his equals. Right? How does Dumbledore treat his inferiors? Because bear in mind, everybody is inferior to Dumbledore. With respect, like equals. Okay? How does Lucius Malfoy treat those beneath him?
Dirt.
Like dirt. Narcissa, dirt. Draco, dirt. Ron, maybe not quite dirt, but not quite on the same par. Harry tends to treat them as equals. What does he say to Dobby when he first sees him? Won't you have a seat on my bed? He starts banging his head. I've never been treated like a. So, if you want to know what a man's like, take a good look at how he treats his inferiors, not his equals. So, he talks about Crouch, how Crouch was once tipped to be Minister of Magic. Great wizard, Barty Crouch, powerfully magical, power hungry, never a Voldemort supporter. He goes, but you guys wouldn't understand, you're too young. Ron, page 526. That's what my dad said. Try us, why don't you? A grin flashed across Sirius's thin face. Why?
He was expecting that.
Okay, isn't that he was expecting this? It's what he wants one of them to say. And he's like, way to go, Ron. Step up to the plate. You want to be treated like an adult? All right. I'll try you. What were Sirius, James, Lupin, and Pettigrew like at this age? Well, Sirius, James, and Pettigrew were already learning the Animagus charm. They hadn't mastered it yet, but they were working on it. So, yeah, they were pretty advanced. So, imagine Voldemort's powerful now. You don't know who his supporters are. You don't know who's working for him and who isn't. You know he can control people so that they do terrible things without being able to stop themselves. You're scared for yourself, your family, your friends. Every week, news comes of more deaths, more disappearances, more torturing. The Ministry of Magic's in disarray. They don't know what to do, trying to keep everything hidden from the Muggles. But meanwhile, Muggles are dying too. Terror everywhere. This is what's in Harry's mind at the beginning of Book 5. Okay? This is what's happening at the beginning of Book 6. Well, times like that bring out the best in some people and the worst in others. He says, I don't know, Crouch's principles might have been good in the beginning. But what does he eventually do? He authorizes the unforgivable curses. In other words, he makes them forgivable. So that certain people can use them against others. Crouch's own son was caught with a group of Death Eaters who managed to talk their way out of Azkaban. Hermione, his own son? Yep. Nasty little shock for old Barty. Should have spent a bit more time at home with his family, shouldn't he? Ought to have left the office early once in a while. Harry, was his son a Death Eater? Notice the distinction Harry arrives at. He was caught with a bunch of Death Eaters. What could that simply be? A case of being in the wrong place at the wrong time. Okay? No idea, says Sirius. I was in Azkaban myself when he was brought in. Mostly stuff I've found out since. He was caught in a company of people I would swear were Death Eaters. Who are that company? Who is what relation to Sirius? Cuz. Okay. Hermione, did Crouch try and get his son off? He says, I thought you had the measure of him. No. Anything that threatened to tarnish his reputation had to go. So which house should, I have no idea which one he was in, which house should Barty Crouch have been in? We'll do whatever it takes. Okay? No, Crouch's fatherly affection stretched just far enough to give his son a trial. By all accounts, it wasn't much more than an excuse for Crouch to show how much he hated the boy. We are going to see that very trial shortly. He gave his son to the Dementors? That's right. Harry, so he's still in Azkaban? No, not anymore. He died about a year after they brought him in. Sirius says a lot died. Most go mad in there. Okay? So old Crouch lost it all just when he thought he had it made. One moment, a hero, this is bottom of 529, poised to become minister of magic. Next, his son dead, his wife dead, the family name dishonored, and so I've heard since escaped. Since I escaped, a big drop in popularity. Once the boy had died, people started feeling a bit more sympathetic toward the son and started asking how a nice young lad from a good family had gone so badly astray. Why is that line significant? That's often, what hits the news. How could this person from such a good family turn out to be Ted Bundy, Jeffrey Dahmer, Paddock, that crazy guy in Las Vegas? How do people from good families become so bad? We understand why bad people from bad families are bad. We don't understand how people from bad families can become good, because it goes against the type. Okay? Notice what Rowling is doing. No one is born the way they end up. Everyone can do what? What does Dumbledore tell Harry at the end of the second book? It is our choices, Harry, far more than our abilities, that show what we truly are. Okay? What are we going to see at the end of this book? What happens to Barty Crouch Jr.? Dementor's kiss. Why? Because Crouch needs to shut him up. That's not what's said. But that's why. Crouch merely thinks he's crazy. Fudge merely thinks he's crazy. Needs to shut him up. And what does Dumbledore say? But you just had the Dementors give the kiss to the last living member of a very long, ancient, established, respected, pure blood family. And what does that show? It shows it's not what we're born, but what we become, what we choose to be, that matters. He chose to be evil. Fudge doesn't accept that, right? What does Fudge think about Barty Crouch Jr.? He's crazy. He thinks he's serving Lord Voldemort. Okay? So, when Barty Crouch didn't get the top job, top of 530, Fudge did. Long silence. So they talk about Snape some. Hermione says, Dumbledore trusts Snape. Run. Oh, give it a rest, Hermione. I know Dumbledore's brilliant and everything, but it doesn't mean a really clever dark wizard couldn't fool him. Is that true? Could a really clever dark wizard fool Dumbledore? Alistair Moody. Do you think Dumbledore knows that this is really Barty Crouch Jr. pretending to be Alistair Moody and putting the entire school body in danger? I don't think even Dumbledore would go that far. Louder?
You put the entire school in Harry's hands, so.
Why did Snape save Harry's life in the first year? I mean, Hermione's going to do what? Okay, let's do pros and cons Snape. She goes down. She's got pretty good reasons. Okay? Sirius. Yeah, I think they both got a point. Ever since I found out Snape was teaching here, I've wondered why Dumbledore hired him. Snape's always been fascinated by the dark arts. He was famous for it at school. Slimy, oily, greasy-haired kid he was. Snape knew more curses when he arrived at school. How old? 11. Than half the kids in 7th year. And he was part of a gang of Slytherins who nearly all turned out to be Death Eaters. Rosier, Wilkes, Lestranges, Avery. Snape knows Karkaroff pretty well. Here he talks about what Snape showed Karkaroff, or Karkaroff showed Snape. Okay. So, Sirius says, just be careful. And we'll stop there and pick up with the madness of Mr. Crouch. That gets us within 200 pages. Surely we can get through 200 pages. Expect a quiz over, I don't know, the last half, something like that, for Tuesday.